Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Mailbag. This is our 25th episode. We're a quarter of the way through our life. I don't know if that's exactly how that works, but it's our 25th episode of the Mailbag. As you are listening to this, I am currently on a plane already to Las Vegas to get started with the news and coverage and meetings and whatnot. So make sure you're checking back at PCPer.com often this coming week, as we've already started the CES news posts, including some Dell announcements and Lenovo announcements this week, but a lot more coming, so make sure you check that out. PCPer.com, all the stuff is there. And then if you have questions for our mailbag today, in the future, or whatever, you can leave them in the comments of this particular video on YouTube, or leave them in the comments on PCPer.com associated with this particular video, and we might feature your question on the next week's episode. I think next week we'll have Josh as our guest fill-in, if you will. So if you have Josh-specific questions, whatever the hell those might be, send those in. Let's get to what we got this week. Dimitri wants to know, I have a Core i7-4770K at 4 gigahertz paired with a GTX 1080 Ti. I play mostly new games at 1440p with a 144 hertz refresh rate. Will I see any significant FPS improvement if I upgrade my CPU to a new processor like the Core i7-8700K? Honestly, probably not, Dimitri. The performance in games, even though there is a little bit more leaning towards the CPU today than there has been in the last year or so, or years or so, still is heavily dominated by graphics performance. And you have the highest performing GPU that exists for gamers without spending $3,000 or something like that. So you're doing pretty well. There are some edge cases where you will see better frame rates because of the higher processor. An 8700K will have, 50% more cores and threads as well, which would be an advantage in games that do happen to be more highly threaded. I would hesitate to tell you to upgrade strictly because of gaming. But if there are other workloads or applications or things that you use that might see an advantage from the CPU upgrade, I think the A700K is a great part, right? And I think you will see general performance compute advantages going from the 4770 to the 8700, right? If you're doing any kind of transcoding, streaming, recording, capturing, those types of things, you will see some performance advantages. But I would hesitate to tell you that you'll see any significant frame rate improvement, with the exception of maybe just a handful of games or titles or situations in that regard. John STF72 wants to know, will we see 2018 GPUs introduce GDDR6 memory and make more frequent use of HBM2? It seems like this should be more of an or question. You're definitely not going to use both of those technologies at the same time. I think it's very likely we see GDDR6 memory in some flagship graphics cards towards middle end of 2018. We have seen production announcements from Samsung and that type of thing, and I have heard confirmation from all parties involved that they will be integrating GDDR6 as an improvement over G5X. So I do expect that to occur. And will there be more use of HBM2? I think so, right? I mean, you'll see probably, if nothing else, even if gaming cards kind of lean towards the G6 memory structure, you're still going to see compute cards and machine learning graphics stuff still focus on the HBM2 side of the memory system. NVIDIA is not going to suddenly revert the Tesla cards from HBM back to G6 or something like that. So I would expect that to continue. AMD has made a lot of bets on HBM. Whether or not they realize or decide that the bet they made on HBM was a little bit too severe, too early, too aggressive, and they released some G5, G5X, or G6 based cards into the gaming segment this year. That has yet to be seen. I kind of don't expect it, right? I kind of think that they've laid the groundwork for their path and their direction moving forward, and I don't really see that as changing anytime really soon. But I do think we'll see G6, GDDR6, kind of make its first entry sometime this year. Daniel Worthy wants to know, will it be, quote, safe to buy a 1080 Ti after CES? In other words, do you expect NVIDIA to release new GPUs at the show or shortly thereafter? I'm eager for a new GPU, but can wait a bit if it means more bang for the buck. This is the eternal question, the eternal problem for upgraders and the like, PC enthusiasts. When is the best time to buy? Ideally, the best time to buy is as soon as a new product is launched, because that's when you'll have the most ramp time between that product and the next product from the same company, in theory. But there's really no perfect time. Would it still be safe to buy a 1080 Ti after CES? I think so. I don't believe you're going to see any announcements. I actually don't know for certain either way. I'm not being coy here. I don't know if NVIDIA is going to show any gaming graphics technology launch stuff at CES. I kind of think they won't. I have no indication that we will. I haven't, there's no tech days planned. There's nothing kind of in the roadmap that I see that indicates that in the next 60 days or something like that, we'll see some new flagship NVIDIA GPUs. We don't even really know. There's tons of rumors that Pascal may not be what comes to the consumer side, that it may be something called Ampere, or there's another name that recently has been circulating. And details on those are more sparse. So telling me that NVIDIA understands that it still is in leadership position in the gaming graphics field. They don't have a lot of pressure on them to get products out the door sooner. They can take a little bit more time to improve yields, improve margins, improve maybe the product itself, right? In order to time things better from when AMD may have a response or follow-up to Vega. So I would still feel relatively safe if after next week, you don't see any news of, you don't see like Asus or MSI or somebody or EVGA showing a secret next generation GeForce GTX card in their booth, and NVIDIA's press conference goes by and they don't make any announcements. I'd still feel confident. I mean, keep in mind, you're going to buy an $800 video card, $700 to $900 video card, and if it even happens in 3 months, you're still going to be pissed that NVIDIA launched that. But that's the price you pay to buy bleeding edge and also the highest end, highest performing products. Korea wants to know, can you explain why OpenGL performance is worse on AMD compared to NVIDIA? If it's just poorly written drivers, why haven't they been able to fix them over the years? I'm specifically concerned with applications like the Wii U emulator Cemu, which runs terribly on AMD hardware compared to NVIDIA. As far as I know, there is no fundamental architectural advantage that NVIDIA graphics architectures, GPUs, have over AMD, over the Radeon brand, that makes them better at OpenGL. I think the difference is NVIDIA has significantly more investment in the OpenGL ecosystem, whether that be for gaming or for professional applications, right? We got to remember a lot of the professional applications were using OpenGL up until fairly recently, and I'm sure some still do. And NVIDIA's Quadro line has been completely dominant in that field for a decade or more. And because of that, they just had a lot of knowledge in that space that maybe AMD didn't have. Now, why wouldn't AMD fix that if it were simply a driver issue over time? I think it really comes down to an investment question. Could they fix it? Yes. Could they have fixed it today or 5 years ago or 2 years ago? Probably, or at least improve the situation pretty dramatically. The thing was, there wasn't a whole lot of demand for it. OpenGL games were and are minimal. And now, I think the writing was on the wall a couple of years ago that OpenGL wasn't going to be important for very much in the gaming space, and instead it was going to be Vulkan, DirectX 12. And so they kind of decided, rather than invest in OpenGL, we're going to kind of admit defeat in that space, let NVIDIA have it, but we're going to catch up in the other areas of growth, other areas that will matter more in 2017, 2018, 2019. And I think they have done that, and they've proven that to be the case. As for applications like the Wii U emulator, I don't expect there to be any dramatic changes for that. If it becomes super popular and the audience asks a lot, maybe AMD's team spends a couple of weeks and makes some tweaks to improve things here and there. But no, I don't expect any dramatic shifts in OpenGL performance for AMD parts ever, I guess I would say. I think OpenGL is going to be deprecated sooner than we'll see those types of changes. Next question comes in from Trans Herring. regarding the Mailbag series, when you started out, what questions or types of questions did you expect would be asked that haven't been? Honestly, I expected there to be a lot more behind-the-scenes type questions. How do we do stuff? How long have you been doing it? Personal life questions or personal life, work life balance type questions, opinions on other websites or opinions on other products or personal issues with other guys. Whether or not you guys are interested in that is totally up to you. I'm sure there are some questions that people will ask that I will not answer, but I did expect a little bit different variants on this, some funnier, trickier ones or something as well. But one of the problems with that is we don't answer every question. It's not like a live call-in show, so I'm sure we're filtering these a little bit so that they're things that both we haven't addressed very recently or things that I feel comfortable answering and talking about, as opposed to having a question and go, I don't know, next question. So that's kind of what I would comment in that area. Speaking of which, Brisa117 wants to know, can you give us an overview of what your article and or video production process looks like? What is the typical turnaround time from start to finish? That's going to vary quite a bit depending on the product and depending on the situation we're in, right? So for a review or an article, it really comes down to two different types. There are interesting articles that we think our audience would enjoy, and then there are kind of embargoed launch stories. Embargoed launch stories are like new GPUs, new processors, new chipsets, things that we get briefed on 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. They send us a product. We're working under an embargo for a set launch period. You've seen this happen many times when everybody releases a GeForce GTX 1080 Ti review at the exact same instant on the internet and on Twitter and on YouTube, right? So that process will vary. Like sometimes for a new processor, Intel might give us 4 weeks with a CPU, and that depends then on what the rest of the workload is at the office. Do we spend all 4 weeks testing and finding things, or do we, fall into the standard schoolwork, work, delays, and procrastination, where we wait for it and go, oh crap, it's 6 days before, now we have to rush through this. That will happen a lot. In those cases, we're usually doing a lot of briefing, and then we're doing research. We did kind of our generic performance testing out of the way, MP3, MP4 encoding, Cinebench rendering, all that type of stuff. And then we start to dive more into, hey, what are the weird new things on this platform we can test and evaluate? What are the things that we want to pay particularly close attention to and try to find maybe areas that Intel or AMD or NVIDIA didn't want us to find? That is something that we can do when we have more time allotted before those launches. And then there are other reviews that come in, say, after a platform processor launch, we get some motherboards in, and then it's we send them off to Maury and we say, get to these in the order you can, and we sometimes adjust what that schedule looks like based on boards that are more interesting to us or graphics cards that are more interesting to us. So there's a lot of variance there. On the video production side, we'll either do we'll finish a review and we'll say this was interesting enough that we want to make a video of this. There's value in showing this to the YouTube audience. Obviously trying to get the YouTube audience to come back to the website as well and read in more detail. But the video stuff is kind of for us, it's still the secondary avenue, right? Other than our podcast, other than the interviews we do, and kind of when people come into the offices and we do really interesting stuff there that wouldn't be as interesting in text form. But that production process for videos is pretty much, hey, Ryan or Alan or Ken or whoever, did you finish the review? Okay, yes, then you should have a pretty good base knowledge of this product, and we just kind of run with it. We don't do a whole lot of scripted videos here. We don't do a whole lot of heavy visual production or whatever. Yes, there are a lot of videos that do things a lot prettier than us, but a lot of times I don't think they're adding content to the conversation or detail to the conversation, which is where our focus still lies. So White Zero wants to know when we're going to get a tour of the new office. I think this is several times we've had this question now. As soon as it's ready. We've only been here a year and a couple of months, right? So there's still a lot going on. The truth is, we're just really busy and we haven't really done a bunch of that stuff, right? It's messy. There's boxes everywhere. not proud to show that off. But I think it's interesting enough people will want to see. People want to know where Ken's walking back and forth behind me in these videos all the time. It's a secret. It's definitely not just the kitchenette area. Right? It's a super secret. We still want to do this. I know Alex has wanted to talk about some of like the production stuff as well, and we'll get to this. I'll just make sure everything's clean first. We'll do that. I'll just wear a GoPro on my forehead and we'll walk around, and that's how we'll do it. I think that's the best way. Ravio K asks, what technology or product category do you think has lacked meaningful progress lately? For me, it's USB thumb drives, SATA SSDs, and monitors. USB thumb drives is interesting because there was a time when USB thumb drives were faster than a lot of internal storage. And now you would think with USB 3.1 that we would have the same, and we really haven't seen that increase on thumb drives. Now you'll see external SSDs and external hard drives that are doing some interesting things. But I would agree there. SATA SSDs, I agree, have lacked meaningful progress. I don't think that's going to change. I think the SATA interface is kind of at its peak, unless they have some SATA 4, SATA 5, SATA 6 interfaces coming, which I have not heard of. Then SATA SSDs are kind of where they're at, right? The progress is in NVMe and progression down that field. Stuff like Optane is a progression down that field. So there's definitely progress in storage, but on SATA-based stuff, agreed. On monitors, I would agree that recently it has become stagnant. We saw G-Sync and FreeSync and sizes and resolutions, 3440 by 1440 curved displays. And then I would say over the last year or 2 years, things have settled down a lot. Everybody focused on HDR. They started to focus on what HDR would mean. And then, last year CES, AMD announces FreeSync 2, NVIDIA shows G-Sync HDR, literally nothing in an entire calendar year from it. So the reasoning behind that is still something we're going to work out and figure out and ask at CES. But I would agree in that space. If there's something else that kind of stood out to me that's been, motherboards is something that comes to mind. Not that maybe chipsets. Chipsets have kind of just homogenized, right? If there's not much an Asus or an MSI or a Gigabyte can do to change chipset performance. But motherboards have done quite a bit in the space of adding features, and it just depends on whether or not you care about some of that kind of stuff. How much of an RGB fiend are you? Do you like the addition of 3D printed accessories for your motherboards? Those types of things. But that's another area I might point to. Speakers, like external desk speakers, I'm still using a set of Corsair SP somethings, 5100s, SP 5.1, something like that, that are 3 years old, maybe older than that now. You see a lot of innovation or new releases in the headphones and headset space, but nothing really in desktop speakers recently. I still have, there's a set of Klipsch speakers here that are probably 15 years old, 13 years old, that I think I would actually plug in on my next PC if I were building that. So just a thought. Let's see. Red Moon Industries wants to know, I'm going to CES for the first time this year. Where could I find you guys to say hi, and will Josh be there? No, Josh will not be in attendance this year. He had a lot of other familial conflicts and scheduling around it. Couldn't get the additional time off, so you won't be able to see Josh. If the best place you'll probably find us is if you go to Pepcom Digital Experience. I guess this assumes you're in the media. I don't really know what your task is there, but that's kind of a media event where you can easily walk through the space and run into people that or see or recognize. Other than that, it's a shit show in terms of where you're actually going to see us. Our schedules are separate, independent, and very complex. Again, not knowing if you are in the media or if you work with any of these other companies that we tend to work with, there are sometimes parties like MSI party or Kingston party or something like that you might be able to spot us at. Because otherwise, we don't even really spend much time at the convention show floor. We spend a lot of that out at meetings and suites at hotels, the Bellagio, the Venetian, the Wynn, Encore, everybody, all these companies that we tend to work with have spaces in those locations because it's cheaper and it's more comfortable. It's just a pain to have to get between. So I don't know. Good luck, I guess. Look for Ken and his shirts and Alan and his glasses. I don't know what to tell you. Good luck. Richard Byrne wants to know, please be sure to check with Dell at CES. I'm hoping for a new OLED monitor. We definitely have meetings with Dell. We'll be at their press conference. I have some executive meetings. We have some product showcase tours that we'll go through. If there's an OLED monitor, I will be sure to see it. No doubt there. That's one of the things I'd be interested to see as well. And our final question will come in from Pixelated Donkey, who says, in contrast to some of our previous questioners, I like the background in Mailbag. Just tell those passing through to shake their booties like it's 1999. Luckily, nobody's in the room to hear that. Otherwise, somebody might have actually done it. I don't think anybody wants to see any of that. And really, probably the only person that would do it is Josh, and he doesn't work at this office. So I think we're all better off. We're all better off for that. So that's it for me, guys. Next week is CES. Like I said, PCPer.com. Check out all the CES news we're going to have. And if you have questions for Josh, who will be doing next week's episode, leave them here in the comments of this video or in the comments on PCPer.com where this video is embedded. We'll check both of those spots to do it. So with that, guys, thank you very, very much for watching. Hope you found it interesting, and we'll see you next time. See ya.
Oh, shake, shake, shake. Shake, shake, shake. Shake your booty.